You know, as the adage goes, all good things must come to an end. And so after 2 packed days of great content and discussion, we have come to the end of our program. But we are certainly ending on a high note as Ms. Tanya McCartney, CEO and Executive Director of Bahamas Financial Services Board, delivers the keynote closing address on the topic, Leading Through Uncharted Waters. Ms. McCartney is a UK-trained barrister and chartered banker and has been in her current role since 2016. She has attained numerous prestigious qualifications, which include, but are not limited to, a Master's of Law degree from the London School of Economics and Political Science, and the designation of a Certified Anti-Money Laundering Specialist. Tanya plays a critical role in facilitating collaboration between the private sector and policymakers in the Bahamas with respect to all global regulatory initiatives impacting the financial services sector. She serves as an advocate for over 250 member financial institutions that are members of the Bahamas Financial Board. Tanya, it is a pleasure to have you with us today to deliver the keynote closing and bringing the curtains down on another fabulous CAB conference in 2021. Tanya, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Dalton.
Okay, there we go.
It's really a pleasure to join all of you here today. Wendy Delmar, CEO of the Caribbean Association of Bankers, executives and directors of CAB, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, all of you delegates, good afternoon. I really wish to thank the organizers of the conference for inviting me to serve as your keynote closing speaker. Now, while I would have loved to have been in St. Lucia this afternoon and have the weekend to visit the Pitons, I will make the most of this virtual experience as we look beyond the pandemic. It does not matter if you are the CEO, the operations manager, compliance officer, a relationship manager, or the customer service rep. We are all living and working in a time that few of us could ever have imagined. Now, I have been asked to speak on the topic, Leading Through Uncharted Waters. Uncharted waters refer to unfamiliar surroundings, limited experience with a specific set of circumstances, or the inability to tell what is on the horizon. Certainly, the times that we now live in are uncharted. The first COVID case globally is traced back to November 17, 2019. In the region, we started to see our first cases in March of 2020. From then, all of us in the region have been operating under some sort of pandemic emergency order or law, impacting how we live, work, and do business. For those of you in the retail banking space, your banking halls were off limits due to social distancing. Offices had to be shut, and staff had to learn how to work remotely. Clients had to learn quickly how to use digital services. And our children had to adjust to virtual learning. And yes, you parents now working from home became teachers. The line between work and the sanctuary of home was blurred for all of us. Some of our teams have been directly impacted by the pandemic, either falling ill themselves or losing friends and loved ones. It became a challenge to engage with our staff as we normally would. We remain worried, quite frankly, about our future as we continue to face great uncertainty. Uncertain economic conditions, a pandemic the end of which we cannot tell, and the consequent impact to our financial institutions really have yet to unfold. Yes, this is what we are navigating. The seas are rough, and we are all grappling to hold on and to find some level of stability. In fact, just last week, PAHO Director Carissa Etienne asserted that there would be no robust recovery without a resolution of the public health crisis in the region, where only 39% of people have been vaccinated. Yes, we are in deep and rough, uncharted waters. It has been and remains rough. During this conference, we would have looked at agile banking, the regulatory environment, and operations aspects of the banking and financial services sector, which is imperative. However, equally as important as we lead our teams in these unprecedented times, it falls to all of us to enable increased employee engagement. It falls to us to maintain a healthy outlook, and it also falls to us as leaders to nurture highly engaged teams. Let's consider resilience. You know, if we stop for a moment and consider where we have come from and what we have gone through as a people, you will see that uncharted waters are nothing new for us Caribbean people. Despite the magnitude of the pandemic, the very nature and vulnerability of our small island developing states has exposed us to external shock factors that have resulted in our resilience, which equips us to make it through the current situation. Now, some of you may be saying, we have not lived through a pandemic before. But I say, ask the banana growers of St. Lucia about the impact of change on the banana industry when between 1992 and 1997, 49% of farmers left the banana industry following the African, Caribbean, and Pacific arrangement, which sought to limit the level of preferential market access of ACP bananas to the European Union. Those were uncharted waters. I say talk to the people of Montserrat and St. Vincent about the impact of volcanic eruptions and the uncertainty that it caused them. Have a word with our brothers and sisters in Barbuda after Hurricane Irma, or Dominica after facing the ravages of Hurricane Maria, and my own people here in the Bahamas after Hurricane Dorian. Again, figuratively and literally, uncharted waters. I say pull one of your colleagues over who has worked in banking for the past 20 years, like I have, and ask them about how we have had to navigate the impact of blacklisting, mutual evaluations, peer reviews, de-risking, and the continuous shifting of goalposts. We have experienced great uncertainty in the past, and yes, we have made it through. It required leadership and innovation. There are learnings in all of these challenging circumstances that we can apply today. We in the region have weathered storms, yes, literally and figuratively. Uncharted waters are nothing new to us. In fact, that's how we got here. Innately, due to our experiences, we have within us what is required to lead our teams through these current times. So how do you lead and inspire teams through this pandemic and beyond? It requires strategy at an individual level and at a corporate level. And it also requires adherence to some fundamental principles underpinned by values. So what strategies can you apply as an individual? Well, I say communicate, lead with empathy, leverage community, and remember self-care. Communication is an essential component of good leadership. In challenging times and unknown circumstances, people look to their leaders to guide them and light the way for them to move forward. This requires information sharing. People need to know where they're going. Let your team know when policies change. Inform them of the support that you will be providing to them as you navigate these uncharted waters. Be available to answer questions. I am sure that you all have employee engagement strategies for normal times. Well, update them constantly. Document the resources available to employees and avoid gaps in information which can easily be filled with misinformation. Consistent communication with your staff is essential to keeping employees feeling well informed, well prepared, and well supported for whatever comes next. These communications should address workplace expectations, job descriptions, and any pertinent changes affecting different departments, locations, and teams. How and when to deliver these communications, for example, from the top, from the managers, through one-on-one communications, will depend on your organization's resources, objectives, and internal culture. However, as a general rule, these communications should get in front of every impacted employee in a timely and efficient manner. Digital communication outlets like email, text, video conferencing are great tools to leverage as many employees continue to work remotely. Leverage video conferencing to enhance team and individual training, connectivity, and communication. Try to interact daily with each of your employees, even if just for a simple hello. Schedule an open door hour, virtually or physically, to allow employees to voice concerns or ask questions. Ladies and gentlemen, communication is important at an individual and organizational level. Secondly, empathy. You must have empathy. As leaders, to maintain and nurture team engagement, you must lead with head and heart. Yes. The current circumstances are not only stressful for you. You may be in the C-suite and you may feel stressed, but your team is equally as pressured. Change on a regular basis is stressful. Add to that the health risk associated with the pandemic. Bear in mind that every single person on your team has some level of anxiety and uncertainty. They're asking internally, how will my job be impacted? Will the bank have to restructure? These are questions people are asking. If the pandemic has not shown us anything, it has emphasized how fragile and brief life is. As leaders, you can't eliminate stress, but you can acknowledge it. Be patient and empathetic. Adapting to remote work may pose a steep learning curve for even some of the strongest members of your team. Show empathy. This involves providing resources, being a listening ear, and a support system. It even means, yes, admitting that you too share some level of anxiety, but that you are committed to providing the support needed for the team to make it through these uncharted waters unscathed. Foster a supportive organizational culture where you hear, listen, and respond to your employees. Trusting in your people and giving them the opportunity to be successful will motivate them to put their best foot forward in planning for the future success of the organization. Thirdly, leverage community and resist the temptation to be insular. Perhaps this one applies to me because I could get into my own little world when I'm working. But you know that this pandemic has made us all feel isolated. We cannot gather and socialize as we want. We can't even go to church as we normally did. In fact, I see in St. Lucia people thanking my good friend from university, Sarah Flood Bobran. I see you calling her Sister Sarah for advocating for Sunday worship. Yes, I keep an eye on what is going on in the region. And so the pandemic has removed us from our communities. Admittedly, work is where we spend most of our time, and we had to transition to remote work, which brings a challenge. But thanks to technology, you can find new ways to bring your team together for regular huddles. As a leader, you need to facilitate connections. You're leading through uncharted waters. Facilitate through connections. Set up those Zoom calls. Use Microsoft Teams. Provide support to your team members again who may not be so comfortable with technology. And my fourth strategy to becoming a more efficient leader as we try to make it through this pandemic is, yes, you have to take care of yourself. Commit to self-care. You cannot look after your teams. You can't have a highly engaged team if you are not taking care of yourself. People are looking to you for stability. They are relying on you for guidance. So you have to be in a good mental and physical space. And very often that requires setting boundaries. Yes, leaders, create a schedule for yourself and boundaries between work and family. You need to be available to your family, and your family needs to know when it's time for work. It's tempting and often seems just a way of life to be available for your team at all hours, and I'm guilty of it. Remote work has made the line between work time and family time quite fuzzy. But you need to honor both of these roles. Otherwise, you will not be of any use or the best use to yourself, your family, or your organization. And like I said, I'm telling you this, but it remains a struggle for me as well, but I'm trying my best. So those were some things for you at an individual level. Let's consider organizational strategies. So, what can you do with your financial institutions to navigate these uncharted waters? At the outset, I told you that in the region, we have been through so much until we can use those experiences to help us in today's operating environment. Well, the first thing your financial institution should have done was to activate a business continuity plan. Secondly, you can leverage technology. And thirdly, lean on experts. So let's consider BCPs for a moment. You should have activated them, but I say to you, continuously review your business continuity plans. These are required by our regulators, and they expect them to be robust. These are not static documents. They're not something that you just pull out in times of trouble. No, you keep reviewing them because circumstances change. Rather, BCPs should evolve and encompass a risk-based approach. In the Bahamas, activation of BCPs was the first step taken by financial institutions once the pandemic hit and emergency orders took effect, restricting movement, the number of persons in an office, and travel. Now, we tended to focus on hurricanes and how they might impact our business. But now, as we develop our business continuity plans, we have to factor in pandemic risks. The Central Bank of the Bahamas in March of 2020 sought to assess the impact of the pandemic, and in July of 2020 released summary results from a survey of internationally active banks and trust companies in regard to the operational impact of the pandemic. While the survey did not include domestic banks, credit unions, or money transmission businesses, it proved to be insightful. Some 65% of Bahamas-based international banks have suffered little or no financial impact from COVID-19. For the minority of respondents reporting an impact, 11% cited concerns with loan loss provisioning or asset devaluation, while 24% expressed concerns with revenue or growth potential. Satisfied with the results, the central bank stated that the results from the survey are reassuring. All institutions have been able to maintain effective operations in the new environment. And to date, financial impacts have been minimal. Some institutions relied on their pre-existing business continuity plans, and others needed to rapidly create new measures to address the combination of curfews, work from home, and the need to maintain in-office staff for procedures such as wire transfers. So the first thing at an organizational level, robust business continuity plans if you want to lead in uncharted waters and see your organizations through. Secondly, invest in and leverage technology. In conducting my own research recently and in discussing the response of financial institutions to changes taking place in the operating environment, many financial institutions accelerated digitization efforts to accommodate remote work as well as expand client service delivery channels. In order to make it in today's operating environment, ladies and gentlemen, technology is everything. It is crucial, and it requires an investment. My third organizational recommendation is lean on the experts. Leaders, you do not have all the answers. I know I don't. So you want to ensure all of your functional units, you want to ensure that all of your functional units are actively engaged in decision making. Edicts from the C-suite or from the ivory tower will not cut it. We are all in this together. The way that you decide to respond to the challenges experienced as a result of the current circumstances need to be inclusive. Now is the time to foster a culture of collaboration between all of your functional units. The left hand needs to know what the right hand is doing, and HR is a critical business partner. If the skills and expertise are not in-house, then be open. Acquire those skills through consultants and other subject matter experts. You need a solid crew on board to steer the ship. Ladies and gentlemen, the seas of the COVID-19 pandemic remain choppy. Some days it looks as if we're heading back to life as we knew it. Then we hear the COVID numbers are escalating, or we hear of some new strain of the virus. So what are you holding on to in these uncharted waters? What anchors you to preserve your balance, to stop you from drifting, and to ensure that your teams are fully engaged? While we have considered some strategies at an individual and organizational level to make this journey less turbulent, there are some principles underpinned by my own personal values and experiences over almost 25 years in the banking sector, and I ask you to consider them. Firstly, leadership is key. We often lament that there is a leadership crisis in almost every sphere of our society. Don't fall in that category. The reality is that everyone's work has been significantly impacted by the pandemic, but the need for strong leadership has not changed. In fact, Many employees need a leader they can turn to now more than ever. Strong, involved leaders can hold managers accountable for their team's performance and productivity. Use this time to deepen relationships with management and staff. Your goal is to make it through this pandemic, not by yourself, but with an engaged team that is resilient, and you want to have an organization at the end that is stronger and that has leveraged innovation. So lead. Secondly, accept that you cannot control everything. Prioritize and focus on what matters most. I put it to you that the people factor is the most important factor. Talk to your teams. Continue to reward and recognize your top performers. Use this time to train and upskill your people. Face it, you are not expected to have all the answers. And quite frankly, you do not have all the answers. Sometimes we feel as if we have to know it all. We want to find solutions. We want to address client and stakeholders' concerns right away, on the spot. However, this requires proper decision-making, requires facts and collaborations. No, you will not always get it right, but it is the process that matters. Studies show employees who are given the opportunity to learn and grow within their roles are far more likely to be engaged in their work and far less likely to leave their organization. Acknowledge that you cannot measure your success in uncharted waters using the traditional scorecard. That's my next point. The old measuring stick cannot be applied in the current circumstances. And I know about targets. I know about stretch goals and their pressure. But I need to tell you, leaders, you need to be flexible and you need to be realistic. I encourage you to accept that change is constant and necessary. Then you will be able to enjoy the ride. Your destination can be extremely bright, even though the waters are uncharted getting there. It's the American actress Kirstie Alley who is quoted as saying, "You will never be disappointed if you always keep an eye on uncharted territory. You will be challenged and growing and having fun." As you leave this conference, this great CAB conference, and I've seen the lineup of speakers, and I've seen the work that Wendy has put into this. As you leave this conference, if you do not remember anything else that I have said, remember, embrace the challenge of uncharted waters. Don't be afraid. Embrace the challenge. Grow with the experience and enjoy the ride. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, and thank you so much for this opportunity. Great job, CAB, for this conference, and it's a pleasure to have presented. Thank you.
Yes, what you are hearing right now, Tanya, is the clapping of my secretariat team. You kept us riveted. I cannot tell you. The messages kept coming in. Everyone has complimented a wonderful, truly, truly wonderful, high energy, high impact closing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us. And Tanya, you are so right. The reason why we are the Caribbean people that we are is because we have constantly forged uncharted waters, and here we are today.
Absolutely. And we've made it in the past, and we will do it this time. Looking beyond the pandemic, the horizon is bright.
That it certainly is. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. It's been an honor and a pleasure listening to you. Now, don't go too far. I do want to invite you to stay with us as we take on the last bits. I want to say special thanks to everyone who participated this year. Tanya, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Fabulous.